She seems so distantly broken. Haunted shadows lurk in dark corners, waiting for the slight curve of her smile, the first sign of happiness to attack. Crashing her world down around her, I offer my hand to pull her out of the familiar rubble.
My first experience with self-injury, I was 10. Started when I was 10, but when I hit high school, it started to get bad. And it's been pretty constant since. I will be 1 year in recovery in June, so that's a pretty big deal. I hate to say it doesn't get easier, because in a sense it does, I guess, but it's more of I just have to take it a day at a time, because if I think too far ahead, I just kind of start somersaulting on myself. I hid it for a really, really long time. My parents didn't know anything until about halfway through my freshman year of college. And then they found out, and that's when I started seeking treatment. So I got myself into therapy, and it's been a battle, but an uphill battle since then, I suppose. I've come a long way. I hadn't told anyone 4.5, 5 years before someone found out about it. That took a while. Not only just obviously to tell someone, but to then work through it. And I'm still working through it. I still work through it every day. It's still hard. But I think that was probably one of the biggest steps. One of the other things was, getting medicated. And there were so many people who are so against, medication and whatever. And yeah, if that's the only thing you're doing, that's not going to work. But at the same time, I've seen such a difference in myself since, and I was finally diagnosed, I guess 2 summers ago, with bipolar disorder, which, like, everything in my life just made so much sense then, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. And once I got on the right medication, I was like, oh my God, is this what it's like to, like, function in the world? And it makes all the difference, it really does. And I had a very, very, not physically, but it was an abusive relationship, and once I finally left that, things looked up a little bit, but I never like to say that was why anything was happening, because that came after everything started, but it was always a trigger. I think coming to college made a big difference for me. At home, I have a lot of really, really great friends. I know there are like a handful of people from my high school and whatever that I will never stop being friends with. Like, to this day, they're still my best friends. But I did not meet anyone who had any sort of idea of what it was like to struggle with the things that I did until I was a senior in high school. And I met her like a month or so before I graduated. And when I came here, I kind of started to realize that those of us who do struggle with anything, whether it be depression or self-harm or, anything along those lines, we tend to find each other. And I find that really interesting, because that's kind of how it worked for me, is I made all these friends, and then somewhere down the line, they were like, oh, I cut, I'm depressed, and I was like, me too. Like, and then you have this whole different support group, and I think it makes all the difference. It makes all the difference in the world, and I think that's what gets me through. I don't want to say even more so than therapy, but they're what I come back to when it's hard to go to therapy. I've loved writing from the time I was little. I got all of the Shel Silverstein poetry books for like my 7th birthday, I think. I loved it from the time I was little, whatever. And then I stopped. I just cut myself off from it, and I think I was just so afraid of what was going to come out if I wrote. And it wasn't until I was a senior in high school and I met this teacher, Mr. Latini, and he got me back into writing, and he was the first person I ever told any part of my story to. And he let me know that I could trust him through a poem. I guess something I said kind of triggered something in him, and he knew that there was something I needed to talk about but wasn't quite sure what, and he sent me the poem Leap Before You Look by W.H. Auden. And one of the biggest lines in there is, look if you like, but you have to leap, which he just, you can toy with it all you want, but eventually it's going to have to come out. And that's how I knew it was going to be okay to talk to him. And I actually have that Leap Before You Look tattooed on my wrist now. I got that a couple years ago. But writing has helped a lot. And I think once I finally came back to that, it was very healing for me. And I remember him saying that the first time he saw me perform. He said, do this for you. Don't ever do this for anyone else, and do it as long as you need it. Do it as long as it works for you.
She is limp against my body, and I know that standing will not be easy, but I am strong enough for you to lean on, the backbone that will keep you upright, for I am one of the few parts of yourself that you love, and I have never needed you more. Screaming ambulance arrives and paramedics flushing your veins, full of IV bags with hope, clearing the poison from your system left behind by the touch of demons. We have only been friends for a year, but I have known you my entire life.
I have comfort animals, actually. I have 2 mice. I was volunteering at a wildlife refuge in my hometown the summer after my freshman year. They would get mice, donate to them from labs who didn't use them, pet stores who couldn't sell them, whatever. And there were so many of them. They had these big gallon fish tanks in their basement, just completely overcrowded. So I have 2 right now, Luna and Nala. And they are like my children. When I get in that place when I just can't focus, I can't function, my head is just, I'm spinning and I just don't know what to do, and I step back and I take them out and I just sit with them. And they know, and you can see it in dogs and cats, and you think about that because they're bigger animals, but with mice, my mom always said you just don't expect something so small to have such personalities, and they have all had very different personalities, but they know. I had one who used to she knew when I was sad, and she would sleep with me. She would just curl up in my lap and sleep, and that's what they do. I've had one that I watched kiss my scars, and that I didn't know what to do with that. I just cried for ever. But that's the best thing that has ever happened to me, was bringing them home.
I wrote a story in 2006 about a friend named Renee who was struggling with depression, with drug addiction, with self-injury, who had attempted suicide. And I ended up writing a story and posting it online. And it was met with this surprising, incredible response, and really took on a life of its own. And ever since then, we've heard from more than 200,000 people.
I, have had my own struggles with this. I've had, a lot of friends who did that, and then the summer before I came to school, I lost my uncle to suicide. And I have identified with To Write Love for a while, and then that summer it was rough for me. It was just really hard, and I ended up turning to that a lot. And about a month before I started here, I found out through going through their website at some point that they had just started a student initiative, and immediately I was like, I have to do this. So a month and a half before I even came here, I was trying to get in contact with people. How do you start an organization here? What do I need to do? How am I going to get this process started? And that was the first thing I did when I got here.
It's this huge part of her life. It's her passion. She started this club so quickly, and she brought it up to where it is now so fast, and it's just amazing.
My freshman year here, by October, I had done a lot of self-fundraising and whatever, because we weren't a thing for the school, so I couldn't get funding from the school. So I did a self-fundraising thing, and I flew out to LA for 4 days in October, long weekend in LA, to attend a MOVE conference, because they didn't have anything near us on the calendar as far as I saw. So I was like, fine, if I have to go to California, then I'm going to California, and that's what I did. So I flew to LA, and I came back, and it took a solid almost a year before we finally were able to get it up and running as provisional status. So we went up in September of my sophomore year, and we were granted provisional status, and we just kept going from there. And it's the most amazing experience. I've seen this club grow from something so small to so large, and this year especially, we have the most amazing group. It's a family. It's a family there. It is such a community. We have such dedicated members and so many freshmen, which makes me so happy because I know it's gonna keep going, because that was always my fear. What if I leave and this falls apart? And I finally have, there are people there that I feel confident handing this over to.
This club made me okay with myself. And I mean, I've been on e-board before. I was secretary a year ago, and this is the only club that I really belong to. This is the only place, this is the only family that I really belong to. I love you guys so much. And I just want this to be the best club that it can be.
I don't really know what I would do without this club. It's amazing. It's the safest place I've ever had to talk about all the things that we talk about there. Nobody is made to feel uncomfortable, and we're all the people that everyone's just oh wow, they're weird, and it's just a really great environment.
I'm applying to grad schools. I'm going for my master in social work, and my plan is to specialize in mental health social work. So this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And at the risk of sounding cocky, I know I'm going to be good at what I'm doing. I know I'm good at this. Some days you will remember just how hard it is to breathe in public, but I will not watch you collapse.